Jeep Renegade guy here, showing you what it took to go from the factory 16-inch alloys to a set of larger 17-inch black alloys from the Jeep Cherokee.
First off, let's go over the sizes of the tires. So what came on the Jeep are these Continental cross contacts in a 215 65 16. That's a 98 H, so 98 load and H speed rating. And these tires, after only 26,000 miles, are about as bald as it gets. They're all the way down to the wear bars, and it's time for new tires. And now, because I'd like to get bigger wheels on my car and get nicer tires at the same time, I've found these Firestone Destination LE2 tires that were on eBay for not too much more than just buying a brand new set of tires for my 16s over there. But these are 225 60 17. So let's talk about those numbers. So the R17 is the diameter of the wheel. So we've gone from a 16 to 17, which means the tire has to get a little bit smaller to be the same size as what's on the Jeep. So to manage to make that happen, what you end up doing is you reduce that 60 number. The 60 is what's called an aspect ratio. That's the percent height of the tire to its width. Now, since we're going from a 215 65 to a 225 60, these are not going to be exactly the same size, but very close. A identical measurement from the Jeep tire that came with the car would be to go to a 215 60 R17. That would give it the same diameter. Now, because we went 10 millimeters wider from 215 millimeters to 225 millimeters, the aspect ratio is going to be proportionally just a little bit taller. It's not very much, so it's not going to make a problem installing these on the car. The other thing you want to take a look at is our load and speed there. It's got a 99 load, so it's a tire that can handle just a little bit more weight, and that's perfectly okay. And then it's a T for speed rating, and it's also a mud and snow tire. You can tell that when we look at this tire behind us here. That tire has a lot of siping. That's what those jagged kind of lines are on the tread blocks. So while I may end up doing snow tires this year, these at least will do a lot better job than the Continental cross contacts that came stock with the car. With the lug nuts off, the wheel also comes off, and you can see just how worn the tread is on this tire. Go ahead and get rid of this one. That's where the new Jeep wheel will come in. So put this one back on. Two things need to happen here. So your hub needs to go into the hub-centric area of the wheel. So this is just gonna slide right onto it, and we'll just bolt the wheel up. So once it's on the hub-centric ring, we're just looking to line up where the lug nuts go. Right there. To do that, I'll just use the socket here, get them started, because you absolutely do not want to cross thread these lug nuts, that's for sure. So now that the lug nuts are in, we're going to go in a star pattern to tighten these up. Not too tight at first.
And this is the moment when I realize the wheels hit the caliper.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm a bit disappointed. I just tried to install 17-inch Jeep Cherokee wheels, and while the bolt pattern fit, as you can see here on the scuff of the inside spoke, it actually rubs the brake caliper. Brake caliper doesn't have enough clearance with these new wheels, which surprises me because we're talking about a 17 by 7. Let me just bring this in so you can see the sizing. So it's right down there, 17 by 7 with a 41 millimeter offset, and the stock wheels come with the Jeep are 16 by 6 with a 40 millimeter offset. So I guess the wheel sits in just that little bit extra that comes in contact with the caliper. So I guess from here I've got a couple of options, but back on with the factory 16s that are unfortunately pretty darn worn, but hey, you know, is what it is for now. I mean, look at that. There's no tread left on these tires. But is what it is. We'll get these installed back on the car and kind of go from there. I'll come up with a good idea of what to do next. Alright, now that the stock wheel's off, I'm going to go ahead and take our new Cherokee wheel, place it on. It looks pretty nice, but if you watch the previous video, you'll come in to see that unfortunately it actually runs right up to the caliper. So I've tried this on the rear of the car, and luckily it actually does not contact the caliper on the rear, but it's only a very, very small amount that it's actually contacting. So I'm going to do an old school trick of taking an angle grinder right to this edge and just cleaning that up a little bit, trying to take off some material. That way I'll be able to put the wheel right back on and have it fit, because I don't want to put a spacer on here, just because, you know, that can cause some problems, but it's just yet another thing on the car. So let's get the angle grinder and see what happens. So keep in mind, when you're grinding your caliper like this, you know, it is at your own risk. There's certainly a chance of damaging something here, but I feel pretty confident. Let's give it a shot. With that little bit cleaned up, let's go ahead and see if it fits. It's a lot closer, not quite perfect, but it's pretty close. Go back through, get that cleaned up a little bit more. You're good to go. So after a little more grinding, you can actually see we now have clearance caliper to go all the way around, and might be hard to get this in so you can actually see it, but we've got a pretty fair amount of clearance all the way through. It's a couple millimeters, which makes me feel good, and now just got to do the other side. All right, now that we ground down the other caliper, we've got caliper number 2. Again, what we're just going after is this this outside piece there, basically just a stiffening brace. So let's get to it. All right, well, let's put the wheel on, see how close we're getting after the first try here. Still pretty tight, so we got quite a bit more to do. As you can see here, we've got quite a bit of the caliper ground down. Now, because this doesn't have a coating, what I'm going to need to do next is actually paint the caliper itself. That way we have kind of a protectant coating on it. We'll do a pretty basic paint job, just mask off the rotor. When it comes time to replace the pads, do a little more in-depth paint job to really make it look great. But in the meantime, I'll just show you on this side. We'll line this wheel up, and it's actually going to be able to go through with plenty of clearance on both sides, and should be good to go. Next up is doing that painting of the caliper, and we'll go from there. Let's give it a few sprays. All right, guys, I let them sit for a little while. That way they could dry, and take a look. So I pulled the bags away from them, and they sure do look quite nice. So this is the passenger front. We'll go ahead and do that same thing we did before, but yeah, these calipers look pretty nice. Marketed improvement over the factory rusting calipers. not even set down yet. I can tell for sure. I like the way the new black wheels look. It just has a pretty awesome look to it. The new wheels, and yeah. Next step, all four wheels are on, so we got to make sure tire pressures are up to 35 psi, and then the next thing we need to do is lower the car, torque down the wheels, and take it for a spin.